on complex network, together on infinity processes, neuronal dynamics. But I know that at the center of its heart, I think the pyramidal model that is kind of the main pieces. So today, Vincent is going to present one of his latest publication that has been released very recently in Nature Physics. It's interesting because like this work, I think the seeds or the inspiration really come from this place. So it's nice that we have finally the full circle in him presenting this studies here today. So he's going to present the low-rank hypothesis of complex system. It's my pleasure to introduce Vincent Thibeault.
Yes, thanks a lot, Guillaume.
The floor is yours.
For the introduction. I'm very glad to be here at the Institute. It's a very beautiful institute. I'm impressed. So yeah, I'm very lucky to be here. So to present the low-rank hypothesis of complex systems, it's a work in collaboration with my supervisors, Antoine Allard and Patrick Desrosiers. And really the goal of the presentation is to explain the somewhat mysterious title here. So I will go through every word of this title. So first of all, complex systems. So complex systems are characterized, as we know, by very, very high dimension. So be it sociological, biological, or technological, there are a lot of elements that interact together. And one very nice example from a paper by Larry Abbott shows the excruciating dimensionality of brain networks. So for instance, the brain volume of the coeliacs is like the average airline seat width. But then if you take the fruit fly, it's like 6.5 billion large. And the mouse is like the distance from Boston to Lisbon, Portugal. So very high dimensions. And moreover, they are characterized by their emergent collective phenomena, such as pandemic, that we know too well about, epileptic seizure, and for instance, a power outage. So these are all kinds of different kinds of emergent collective phenomena. And what we do a lot in physics and network science is that we introduce a network to model the structure of these systems, and then we also have we also suppose that there's a dynamics to each of these nodes. So we get at the end a very high dimensional dynamics on network. So this is an illustration of the vector field of the dynamics. But there are difficulties of dealing with these high dimensional systems because even the simplest mathematical models can have very complex dynamics. So just the logistic equation, there is chaos in it, spin glasses and cellular automata too. So in the machine learning, you have these quite simple recurrent neural networks. That is, the form of recurrent networks are pretty simple, but yet you're able to approximate any finite time trajectory of a given n-dimensional dynamical system. And to get analytical insights on these dynamics, it's usual to keep these models pretty simple to get analytical insights. And one informal way to describe the low-rank hypothesis is that the dynamics describing complex systems can be reduced to few equations involving a low-rank matrix that describe the network of interaction. So I put it there, and now my goal will be to explain every word in that. Because it seems paradoxical that we use a low-dimensional description to describe a high-dimensional complex systems. It seems that we might lose everything about the collective phenomena that we study. So is it a paradox? Are we cursed by the dimensionality of our system? So the first part of the presentation will be about defining and verifying this hypothesis. And the first thing that I will introduce will be singular value decomposition. I will talk about SVD and networks, which SVD is a very important tool to reduce the dimension in many fields. So Then I will introduce the low rank hypothesis for networks. We will look at some real networks too. And then the next part of the presentation will be about the impact of the hypothesis for dimension reduction in the dynamics of networks. And I will close the presentation by discussing the important interplay between the dimension at which you describe a complex system and the order of the interactions when you model the structure. Okay, so let's dive into the SVD of networks. As we know, any network, be it weighted, directed, or signed, it can be represented as a matrix. And when you have a matrix, you have all the theoretical tools from linear algebra. One of them is SVD, so it's a decomposition, like the Eigen decomposition in some way, but now you have two orthogonal matrices and a diagonal matrix. So these orthogonal matrices contain the singular vectors, and this one contains the singular values. So the singular values come to the eigenvalues are always real and non-negative. So this is quite an important theoretical aspect when you play with math. And there's also a nice advantage about this decomposition is that the number of non-zero singular values it's equal to the rank. It defines the rank of a matrix, which is usually understood as the number of linearly independent rows in your matrix or columns. And so if you truncate the matrices in your decomposition, what you get when you choose the truncation to be equal to the rank, you get an exact low dimension representation of your real matrix if the rank is lower, of course. Okay, so let's get to a nicer example. If you take the flag of friends, rank 1, because you just need two vectors and one singular value to express the flag of friends. You just have to make this product with your hands. But if you take the flag of Quebec, now you have four Claudelis, then you need larger matrices. But still the rank is pretty low, but yeah, you need more. But usually for a network, because we want to talk about SVD and network, when they are weighted, it's very easy to have very high rank. So rank that are the size of the network. Because if you take this very, very simple graph, if you remove this, you would just have a weight matrix of ones. So of course they are linearly independent. But if you just perturb one link by this really small number, rank 2 already. So for a weighted networks, you will expect the rank to be almost like full general. That's why we are interested in low rank approximations of our matrices. So low rank approximation, it only means that you will choose the dimension of the truncation to be lower than the rank. And what's interesting about singular value decomposition is that it's the optimal low rank approximation. And this was proved, it's pretty old, but it was proved by Eckert-Young in the theorem in 1936. And now, instead of looking at the rank, you're looking at effective rank. So you're trying to keep it's the number that tells you how many significant singular values there are in your matrix. So I'll give some example. Let's go back to the flag of Quebec. Maybe you could recognize it a bit, but if you just do a rank 1 approximation of the flag of Quebec, you're still able to get the white stripes in the flag. And you wonder maybe there's something there too. And it's really when you begin at components that you begin to clearly see the floodings. And I'm curious to know if anyone can guess what flag is this from a rank 1 approximation. It's for fun. Sorry? No, no. Now, yeah, it's not that well known. It's not even a country.
UN.
It's a city. It's the flag of Boston. But you see that now you need more. You see, here you could guess at 5, you could really guess that it was today, but here you cannot even read what's in the circle. And so perhaps at 10 components, you begin to see Bostonia. And when you get to 25 components, you're able to read the latent contour in the flag. So what I want to show here is that you can have matrices that have higher effective ranks. You need more component to see the details. And so when you just look at the first component, you get the macroscopic picture of the matrix. And when you take a higher component, you get the local properties. And there are many definitions of effective rank. It's not there's not one better necessarily than another. One that we've looked at is the stable rank, S rank. So it gives you the relative importance of the squared singular values with respect to the largest one. And I won't get into the details of the other. Those who are familiar with PCA, the energy and the elbow are used a lot. So we have looked at them, but it's still a very active research subject. Actually, these two works from 2017 and 2023 tried to find the optimal way of shrinking the singular values of a matrix. It's useful, for instance, if you acquire data from an MRI, for instance, and you try to denoise the image. So yeah, I won't say more about that, but very interesting works. Okay, let's go back to networks. So if you look at the singular values of a network, you just take for a bunch of disconnected nodes with self loops, then all your singular values are 1. If you take a path, then your singular values will decrease supralinearly. A square grid, it will decrease sublinearly. And if you take the star is a rank 1 matrix. So there's only one singular value there that is non-trivial. So basically the star is like the flag of France. You need just 2 vectors to describe the star. So there's this whole range of possibilities for networks. If you perturb the star, so I've added 2 links there, then you can do, and when you do this, it turns out that you have rank 6. You see this, it's the only one that is non-zero. If you do like the flag of Boston or Quebec, you can do the low rank approximation of your network. So you see here, you don't quite see anything. Perhaps there might be a star, but really here you see, okay, the edges get stronger from the center to periphery. And it's really until you get to 4 and 5 that you see, okay, perhaps these links are there. So you get, like I said before, for the flag of Quebec, you're starting to get the microscopic features of your network. And at the rank, it's exact low rank factorization. Okay, so we have every tool that we need to define the low rank hypothesis. So let's dive into the subject. So we've made the correspondence between graph and matrix, but what we can do too is that every random graph can be described as a random matrix and vice versa. And when we take a look at random graphs from the perspective of random matrix, then there's some nice stuff that you could say. So I will present in the next slide 3 indicators of the low rank hypothesis for random graph, if you want random network ensemble. So as I said, a random graph can always be described as a random weight matrix, which is a sum of its expectation plus a random noise matrix. And this is centered, this mean is centered at 0. This can always be done. And now, among all the possible random graphs, we observe that there are many of them that can be written where the expected weight matrix can be described as a nonlinear function of a low rank matrix. So I want to convince you of that. So I will show you a lot of examples. If you take the GNP model, it's a rank 1 model. It can be expected, it's pretty homogeneous. It only depends on the number of nodes and the probability of connection in the model. Now you can add weights to this model if you want, but the most simple way to do this will also lead you to a rank 1 model. Now, if you want to add, okay, let's add some heterogeneity in the graph. We will want to have heterogeneous degrees. So we can consider Chong-Lu model. It's a rank 1 model, 2. Okay, let's add some blocks and make the network directed. If you choose the number of blocks to be low, the rank of the matrix will be smaller or equal to the number of blocks.
Oh, but then even the first example.
Like what?
Even the first line. So what do you mean?
I mean that, okay, so here, imagine that, I will see it like this. So if you have a function, the expected weight matrix of.
Oh, the expected.
Yeah, this is only, for now, it's only for the expected. But we'll get to the random matrix early enough. But you see that this has a huge impact. Okay, so for this one, the nonlinear function was it was only phi of L for L. But some model also are dependent over the nonlinear function can be a Bose-Einstein function or Fermi-Dirac.
Hello, there's no audio.
Do you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Oh yeah, it was just that? Okay, okay. Yes. There was like a okay and okay. Okay, so I won't be long on this slide, but it's just to show that if you take many instances of your random graph ensemble and you measure the effective ranks, then you will see that even when you increase the noise in the model, you will get a pretty low effective rank. But now, what is low? Because 1 compared to 1 billion is 5 compared to 1 billion. Of course, 5 is low, but 5 versus 6 is that low. So the effective ranks, it doesn't tell you that the effective rank is low or not. It just gives a graded measure of lowness. But but if you take the asymptotic perspective, in this case, when you look at the effective rank divided by n, I think it's a reasonable way to define low if you say that if there is a sublinear growth of the effective ranks as n tend to the infinity, it's low. So that's what we do, because when you take the limit, it will decrease to 0. So that's the thing that the definition that we have chosen. And this perspective allows us to really make the bridge between the singular value decreases and the effective ranks. So we have looked at different kind of singular value decreases, from supralinear to exponential, which looks like this in log scale. And we were able to get there the asymptotic behavior of the effective ranks for every of these decreases. And you see that for the hypergeometric decreases, you have sublinear decrease, sublinear growth, sorry, of the effective ranks, but when you have exponential, it's constant. So this led us to define the low rank hypothesis as the hypothesis that networks with matrices have rapidly decreasing singular values, which imply low effective ranks. And now we can ask, where are real networks in that? Real networks seem to be all below the hypergeometric decrease. So we've gathered about 700 real networks, and the decreases that we observe are rather fast. In fact, if we can quantify that with the effective rank, the stable rank, we could predict theoretically that we won't expect the stable rank to be much than 10% of the number of nodes of the network, and even you see that it's very low. This is a pretty mysterious fact that we cannot explain completely for now. But some people have noticed this kind of behavior for big data matrices. And this is a very nice work by Madeleine Dell and Alex Thompson, where they ask, why are big data matrices approximately low rank? So this will be a question, I guess, that will still get more attention the next year, I hope. Okay, so now that you have defined the hypothesis, what is the impact on dimension reduction of dynamics on network? We have noticed that there are many dynamical systems, so a system of ODEs that have this form. So the state of the system derived by the time is equal to a nonlinear function of x and wx. So here I just write it like this, the wx, and introduce yi. And you see that many very popular models, including Vincent Thibeault in neuroscience, recurrent neural networks, will depend on this matrix. And what we want to know is what's the role of wx in this nonlinear function. Let's go back to the rank, because we will use every kind of definition of the rank of a matrix. So if you just use the linear function, the linear map Lx equal wx, you can say that the rank is equal to the dimension of the image of L. So let's make a picture of that. That this means that if you choose W to have a low rank, Wx will belong to a low dimension subspace. But as I said, the rank is generally high for a network. But perhaps if you have a low effective rank W, Wx will belong to an effectively low dimension subspace. But complex systems have nonlinear dynamics, so it's not that simple. How much the fact having low effective rank will enable us to reduce the dimension of our dynamical systems. So let's get back to this picture. Okay. There's a little lag. Okay, so when you want to reduce the dimension of the dynamical system, you can always introduce a reduction matrix. So this is only a matrix that takes every state in your high dimensional space, and then it projects it to a lower dimensional space. And the same goes for the vector field. So this would be the projected vector field. And this will give you new variables. I will call them the reduced variables, since they live in this low dimensional space. And these are, if you want, observable. So it could be the number of infected individuals. It's collective. They are collective variables. But it's not enough to just introduce a reduction matrix, because what you want is to close the dynamical system. You want a new vector field characterized by the illustrated with the orange arrows that you can express in terms of your macroscopic variable, your reduced variable. So really, the problem of reducing the dimension of a dynamical system or network, it's about aligning those orange arrows and the blue arrows. So you want to find, in other words, a reduction matrix and a vector field such that these lines, these arrows are as much aligned as possible. So the picture is a bit more complex, and I won't go through the details of that because it would be unuseful, but there are many alignment errors. You could project the reduced vector field in the high dimensional space and align those arrows there. Yes, in principle, you would like to minimize one of them. You would like to say, take this one and find the function f, and the reduction matrix m that are optimal to align the vector fields. So it's a complex problem, and we found one way to do the alignment. So we found a path that we could walk through analytically. We did not do anything funky with machine learning and stuff like that, but we have just found a path that we could do that. So the first thing that we have done, it's decomposed into two steps. First, we find the vector field and then the reduction matrix. So we have just used this square, actually. So you see that the optimal solution, the vector field that minimizes one of the alignment error, it's just the reduction matrix composed with the vector field F of the original dynamics and the pseudo inverse of the reduction matrix. So it's a generalized inverse. You can look at it like an approximate way of inverting a matrix. And it's nice because in this case, you get an alignment error to be 0. But it's also useful for another reason. This dimension reduction allows you to bound another alignment error, and this gives us some insights. So when you use the least square optimal dynamics reduction that I've shown before, you can see that when you bound the error, there's this singular value of the network that appears. This singular value is the largest neglected singular value of your network that you have. And this is when you use the reduction matrix to be the left singular vectors. So there's a whole justification for that, because at one point you can use the Eckert-Young theorem and then you get that. So it minimizes, this choice minimizes a part of the bound. I won't get into more details. And there are many insights that we can get from this. So if we just take the simplest example, linear system, and you compute the bound, you see that the alignment error is just bounded by the neglected singular value of the network. But so what this means is that if you have a rapid singular value decrease for your network, then you can induce a rapid alignment error decrease. So this should enable at some point dimension reduction of dynamical system of network and even real network. So that's what I will show you. So this was a very simple example, the simplest one. But if you take perhaps the simplest nonlinear example, which would be the quench midfield SIS, you can see that the bound follows quite well the decrease of the singular values in blue. it's not necessarily that tight to the true alignment error when you reduce the dimension, but we didn't want something that is very tight. We really want we didn't want really a tight one, but we wanted one that was intuitive, that gives us insight, and where the decrease represent pretty well the behavior of the dimension reduction. So we have, for instance, in the neuronal case, you see that it's not tight, it's not scale, but the decrease is qualitatively correct compared to the average alignment error. The same for two other examples, the microbial dynamics and recurrent neural network. And there is something special for recurrent neural networks. So they have a very special form that seems to be coherent with the dimension reduction that we use. In this case, if you choose the neural network to have a low rank, you can exactly reduce the recurrent neural network. So you see that the alignment error falls to 0 when you choose the dimension of the reduced system to be the rank of the network. So I won't get into the details, but we found the criteria where the bound falls to 0. And this includes every dynamical system, and it's nonlinear that have this form. Okay, but now we were interested from the beginning about predicting the macroscopic collective properties of dynamics on real networks. And as we've seen before, we know that the first component of SVD should give you the macroscopic properties of your network. So we should be able to predict some of the global properties of the dynamics. And indeed we can. So the simplest example of nonlinear dynamics here would be the quenchment field SIS. In this case, the transcritical bifurcation is very well predicted. When you increase the dimension of the reduction, of course, as we could expect from the decrease of the alignment error, we see that the equilibrium points are getting closer to the real, because the black dots here are the real equilibrium points of the dynamics. And the same goes for hysteresis for the Wilson-Cowan dynamics on a C-elegans network. And notice that this network that we chose is weighted, signed, it is directed. So singular values really is nice for reducing dynamics on network that have a sign in it. But it's not always perfect. Like, of course, there are dynamics that are much more complex. For instance, this one is very nonlinear in I think that if I remember well, the matrix, the microbial interactions it's a very sparse matrix, and there are multiple attraction basins. And so you need a lot of dimension to get an accurate picture, an accurate global picture of the bifurcation diagram. And we can also predict limit cycles in the regime where there are limit cycles in the recurrent neural network. So this is a pretty nice, I like the form. It's like there are arcs in the limit cycle, but when you increase the dimension again of the reduced dynamics, you can get a very accurate picture, and even exact picture when you choose N to be the rank of the limit cycle. Okay, but so what we have seen is that if you have fast decreasing singular values, or you make a low rank hypothesis about your network, this somewhat induces a low dimension hypothesis on the dynamics of this network. And one thing that I've not talked about, that these reduced variables there, they also have a structure. So there's also a network in this low dimensional space that is important for the evolution of the reduced dynamics. So this leads us to the emergence of higher order interactions. Go back to the differential field size. So when we apply the least square optimal vector, the least square optimal dimension reduction, what you get when you simplify things, and it's not hard to do it actually, you get that there are tensors that appears. So you see here's there's a third order tensor, and this third order tensor depends on the reduction matrix that we've talked a lot about. Depends also on the weight, the weights of the original network. So yeah, and if you take another example, for instance, the Kuramoto-Sakaguchi, Young told you that I like this model because it's a great model for studying synchronization. Of course, it's a very naive model for epilepsy, but yeah, in this case, you have a cubic nonlinearity here. And what happens when you apply their dimension reduction? Now there's a fourth order tensor there. And so, and you can see there are four reduction matrix here. So something that we see also is that the tensors will depend on the nonlinearity of the dynamics. And the directed nature and the weight nature of the tensor will depend on the reduction matrix too. So if we look at the global picture and we gather all the tensors that dynamics, really, it tells you that the structure of this reduced system is a hypergraph. I did not look for hypergraph. I did not even want to work with hypergraph, but when I was looking at an optimal vector field, this one, it just happened. So yeah, and you can see in this picture that really the hypergraph is determined by all these arrows, by the vector field, by the reduction matrix, and the choice of dimension reduction that you need. So these are very interesting conceptual insights from pretty simple example, and I would say even naive dimension reduction. So in conclusion, I hope I've convinced you that singular values are interesting for network science. Like the degrees or the clustering, it tells you about the effective dimension of your network or your complex system. So of course, it's more abstract in some way because it comes from spectral theory, but even though it tells you about dimension. And also, many real networks have rapidly decreasing singular values. And the reason for that is still not precisely known. And perhaps this is something about various complex systems. This is something intrinsic to the way complex systems are behave. Also, when you have rapidly decreasing singular values and low rank models, for instance, this will enable dimension reduction of complex systems. So we can hope that predicting emergent collective phenomena is possible with fewer dimensions that one would expect a priori. And finally, dimension reduction can lead to the emergence of higher order interactions. And this depends on the precise dimension reduction that you use and the nonlinearity of the system. So if you want more details, there's the paper that was published not a long time ago. There's a nice news and views by Jiang Zigao, and even a small article by Tejasvi in biz.org. And there's also all these inspiring references for our work. So thanks a lot for your attention, and thanks, Young, for your invitation.
you, Vincent. You're great to talk. And I apologize for people online, like I completely missed it, but I hope now you can hear. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat. So I'll take the first question from the audience. Yes, Sayer. Sorry.
What parts of that process were, I guess, what parts of that reduction were ontologically relevant and what parts of it were specific to the dynamics? Like, is that a result that's generalizable across any sort of dynamical process, or is that specific to the dynamics that you chose?
No, it's not specific
Can you just
to.
repeat the question for people online?
Yeah, okay, so the question was, is the fact that there are higher order interaction happen because of the specific form of the dynamics? Actually, it's a great question. I will just go to a slide where it gets clearer. Actually, one of the results was to show that any polynomial vector field will, when you apply the specific dimension reduction that we have used, so the least square one, so it's too slow for me to go back there. I will try to go there instead. It's really here that everything happens because you have a function of a sum. And so it makes the matrices, the reduction matrix multiply together. So it's as simple as that. But it happens actually in my master thesis project, I realized that there were also higher order interactions. So it's not, it's really dependent on the dimension reduction that you use. You could even define a dimension reduction to always avoid hypergraph, I guess. Sometimes perhaps it's unavoidable, but for this one, sometimes you can just not avoid it. I would answer it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So you were talking about the Kurama model, right? The first order Kurama model. You are talking, so essentially it is sort of known that in the thermodynamic limit, the dimensions can be reduced to just 2. Exactly. And then so could you comment? Here you have considered only the first order Kurama model. Could you comment what would be the way to think about if you have terms, some initial terms like some initial terms coming in, for example, I don't know, something like x double dot plus x dot is equal to sum of x.
Sorry, I did not understand.
Things about the exact reduction of the parameter model. So are you speaking about what analysis of gas?
Yeah.
Ah,
As
good,
well as the
good.
objects that
I would not even use. I actually work on another paper where we are looking at the most general network that can be exactly reduced for the parameter model. I would not even use this dimension reduction because you have Watanabe gaps, you have hot n percent also that you can use the limit n to infinity. This is just to show that when you use it on this model, it looks like this.
Yeah, but the problem is that those things don't flow over to the second order models. For example, if you add an inertial term to the parameter model, then all these dimensionality reduction methods don't work at all. By what standards are you not attendance? So that's where sort of this idea comes in, where how would your method help in towards achieving sort of this reduced
I did not understand correctly.
Well, I think I don't know much about, but there seems to be a second order type of model. I don't. There's maybe you don't let that.
Okay.
yeah, so if you add an inertial term, some x double.
Okay, inertia. Sorry.
Yeah. So if you add that, then all these dimensionality reduction methods that are exact in the limit, they don't work. They don't flow to the second order.
Yeah.
So in that case, your method, so how does it sort of help towards the?
For this dimension reduction,
Yeah.
actually any second order dynamical system can be transformed to a first order dynamical system. So in this case, you can always apply the dimension reduction here. I don't know how good it would be for the theoretical model, but you could use it first.
I have 2 questions also online. So could you repeat your finding on real world network? Because I think because of the blackout during the audio, like was it that you find stable low ranks on average when where the ranks are in the order of about 10% of the number of nodes.
Yeah, so it's not about necessarily the average. Perhaps I can go back to the slide. But it's really that when you look at the singular values of complex networks, complex real networks, you will see we could look at some of them together at one point, but like you see really that they all decrease very fast. And like when you, this implies that you can, this implies that you will observe low effective ranks such as in the case of the stable rank. But I don't know if I answered. It was just to repeat the.
Was it that you find stable low ranks and average order ranks are in the order of 10%? I think it's more about like maybe an order of magnitude of where, and I think like stable, yeah, I'm not totally sure. Also, like we can answer back to the person.
Yeah.
Another question is: would you expect that self-organizing system would tend to evolve toward more rapidly decreasing singular values, and thereby lower effective rank in order to maintain their non-equilibrium steady state?
Yes, I like this question. So this is one of the future direction of this research, I think, because we've talked about complex systems, but complex systems, they adapt. The weights, the matrices are evolving according to time too. So this should have an impact, and we can wonder if it's not in the way that these networks are evolving to perhaps increase their resilience or increase. I don't know what that's.
Must be information bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's